How often do you think about the Germanic people living outside of the Roman Empire? Hi guys, what's up? My name is David and welcome back to my channel. So I have a feeling that today's video is going to be a long one, so strap in. And also, content warning, I will be talking about murder, sacrifice, and yeah, death related things. So if that is something you don't like hearing, be aware because it's gonna come up multiple times. So yeah, sacrifice. You might be thinking, where did that come from? Well, I have this channel called Queer Pagan, right? And both queer and pagan are two words that cause extreme anger in some people, anger that they want to express through comments. And there's one very specific type of comment I get whenever I make a pagan or Viking related video, which is kind of funny, but I'll come back to that later. Um, so I get this comment related to Bogs and the like killing or sacrificing gay people in Bogs, which is a weird thing to comment, but I still want to dive into it because it really is an interesting subject. I mean, it's not nice that people come up with comments like this, but that's why I kind of feel the need to talk about this myself, to distance myself from these personal comments and kind of talk about like why people say stuff like this, where they get their information from, and what we can learn from that. So, if you don't know me, hi, my name is David. I study Scandinavian Studies at the University of Amsterdam, but I am currently on exchange at Stockholm University. I am a trans guy, and my area of interest is Norse paganism and like the Viking Age culture, arts forms like poetry, runestones, stuff like that. Which again is funny relating to these comments because it's completely anachronistic. But yeah, once again, I'll get into that. So there is this work by a Roman scholar slash historian called Tacitus, or Tacitus if you want to be exact. So he wrote this work called De Origine et Situ Germanorum, which is usually known as Germania. It's like a historical and ethnographic work that explains the life of Germanic tribes outside of the Roman Empire. Now, before I get into the actual work itself, I want to say that this work has played a major role in the formation of like core concept of pan-Germanism and the Nazi ideology, which makes comments alluding to this work all the more specific. But you know, Nazi slash anti-Semitic stuff always goes together with homophobia and transphobia, so it's nothing special, nothing new, but it's still bad. But why am I talking about this work? Well, this is the only work that actually mentions gay people being killed in bogs. I say gay because it's not actually like 100% known whether Tacitus is referring to gay people or not. But yeah, I will get into that. So, in this work, Germania, Tacitus describes the life of Germanic and other tribes that live in northern and western Europe. This also includes like Western Slavic tribes in what would now be considered Poland, but it was still like kind of under the term Germania, like the terrains above the Rhine River that were outside of the immediate Roman Empire. And please don't ask me how often I think about the fall of the Roman Empire, okay? So yeah, when it comes to these tribes, what is described in Germania is stuff like their religions, their social organization, like rulers, laws, important virtues that these societies have. And the thing is, there is a lot to be critical about when it comes to this work. First of all, Tacitus has never actually been to Germania. At least there's no surviving proof that he has, and he bases his works off of things he has heard from other people, which is always, you know, iffy. And another thing is that he was a Roman person. He was tasked with the description of these people who lived outside of the Roman Empire. And the thing with people living outside of the Roman Empire is that there were like two ways to regard them from a Roman point of view. And usually these two ways were kind of simultaneous. One of them was to see these barbarians as underdeveloped, undercivilized, and the Romans saw themselves as better than them. But on the other hand, these barbarian peoples lived like closer to nature, more true to themselves, and kind of like reflected virtues that the Romans didn't see within their own people, and they were like, this is what we should be doing actually. So a lot of these descriptions of people outside of the Roman Empire are kind of like idealistic. So works like Tacitus Germania cannot be seen as fully factual, even if they're based on real things that were going on. It's still very much influenced by Roman politics and ideology and what people wanted to hear or read about these peoples. And this Roman point of view, there is a word for this, especially when it comes to the description of religions outside of the Roman Empire, is interpretatio Romana, which means Roman interpretation, and it's pushing Roman terms and viewpoints onto other religions. For example, comparing gods to Roman gods, which is exactly what Tacitus did. He, for example, described the cult of Thor and Odin and likened them to Zeus, I think, and Mercury, so that Roman people understood what was going on. But also because he understood it from a Roman viewpoint. Keep in mind, he was a Roman, he wrote Germania around 98 AD, so in the first century. So he saw this Germanic religion from a Roman religious point of view. But now onto the important part of why I am making this video. So one thing he describes is cult places in holy groves and next to bogs, for example. And he mentions that people sacrifice to their gods in these sacred groves and that this includes humans. Now, this is again, we cannot take this as 100% facts. However, human sacrifice has been proven to have happened through archaeological research. Although there has been a very recent study from 2023 which examined 1,000 over 1,000 bug bodies from Middle, Northern, and Western Europe, and only 45 of these have been confirmed to have died a violent death. So whether it's murder or human sacrifice, 45 out of 1,000 is not really that much. And of course, probably more than 1,000 people have died in these times. So to say that human sacrifice was something super common is probably not very true. I will come back to this study because it's still important. And another thing that Tacitus writes, which is like the sentence that homophobic people use as proof or argument for their views, is this sentence. And in Latin it is ignavos et imbelles et corpore infames caeno ac palude injecta in super crate mergunt. And I am assuming that most of these people who write these comments do not read classical Latin, which is okay, like, you know, we don't live in the classical era or medieval period or Renaissance where Latin was the lingua franca of science. But since Latin is not as widely spread anymore, people only have access to translations. So let me give you three different translations of the sentence that I have found in different translations of Germania. So one of those is those who disgrace their bodies are drowned in miry swamps under a cover of wicker. So here, corpore infames is those who disgrace their bodies, which is, yeah, pretty close to what the original says. Then the other one is cowards and the unwarlike, and those who have perverted their persons, they plunge in the mire of a swamp with a basket put over them. Those who have perverted their persons, it becomes even more derogatory. And then another one, and this is what has been used in my comments, is deviants are drowned in muddy marshes under a wooden hurdle. Here the basket becomes a wooden hurdle instead of wicker, and those who disgrace their bodies become deviants. So, yeah, let's talk about this. So, this is the sentence which obviously refers to people who, in some way, disgraced their bodies and how they are killed. This is from chapter 12 of Germania, which speaks about crime and punishment and how different crimes are punished differently. And this disgracing your body is considered a crime that gets this punishment. So I know that you'd probably hope that I would say, like, no, this actually does not refer to gay people, it has nothing to do with that, and this is all bullshit. However, it does. It really does. Although it's pretty unclear in this passage itself, this structure, corpora infames, is used in other works of Tacitus referring to a effeminate senator. So it's used to describe, well, passive homosexuality basically. And the thing is, Tacitus was a Roman, and homosexuality was okay in the Roman Empire. It was practiced, it was a thing. The only thing that was bad was being a passive homosexual because that was considered unmanly. So this idea of passive homosexuality from Rome is then somehow translated into these Germanic practices. And we know from later Germanic sources that there are words for passive homosexuality, like arger, which was also bad and condemned, but it wasn't the exact thing as the Roman terms because, sexuality is different in different time periods, different eras and stuff. But it does seem from this one sentence that homosexuality was not accepted in the Germanic regions, at least not passive homosexuality. Then again, this whole perverted their bodies can also refer to pederasty, which means love for children. And then I 100% agree, if you're doing all that, then you should get drowned in the bog. So, yeah. But let me say a bit more about all this. So, first of all, this all happened 2,000 years ago, okay? 2,000 years ago. Humanity has developed since then. Whether for the better or for the worse is up to debate, but we do not live in these times anymore. And it's just weird to use a first century Roman description of Germanic punishments to hate on someone in the 21st century. Like, why go through all that effort to pull this out to use against me or other people, because I've seen other videos speaking about this. So that is weird. And the thing with like bogs and bog bodies, like, I get this as an insult, like, oh, you should get drowned in a bog. Have you ever seen a bog body? They're cool. When it comes to archaeology, bogs are awesome because they have a low amount of oxygen, meaning that bodies get preserved really, really, really well until they are discovered and taken out of the bog. So I don't know if I can put this on YouTube. So trigger warning, I will put a photo of a bog body on the screen. It can be weird. So here you go. So yeah, if I were to be killed in a bog and then discovered a few thousand years later and I would still look like that, count me in, throw me in a bog. And while researching these bog bodies, I've actually went on the site of a Moosgaard Museum in Denmark. I've actually been to another museum in Denmark, the Copenhagen National Museum, which also has bog bodies. So yeah, I've seen them before. So they actually talk about bogs and their use in the Iron Age Scandinavia and how they were a place of cult. And even though they are described kind of like negatively by people like Tacitus, is actually would have been a more positive thing to be either killed or sacrificed there, because there's a difference between being killed and being sacrificed. When you're sacrificed, it's for like some kind of greater good. You're giving to gods in order to get something back, whether that's like fertility or balance in the universe. So yeah, being thrown in a bog would rather seem as something good because bogs were seen as like sacred places. So to be offered in a bog would probably be a positive thing, which gives question marks to the thing that Tacitus wrote. Another thing that this museum actually says on their site is that we need to be careful with Roman sources because they're usually biased and reworked in the medieval period. And this is actually exactly the case with Germania because the only place that it has been found is one manuscript, the Codex Hersfeldensis from Germany, which was found in the 15th century, okay, 15th, and probably written in the 9th century. So that is still almost 1,000 years after it was supposed to have been written. And then we still don't have the original of that manuscript, but only the copy that someone has made in the 15th century. So the only real mention of potential punishment of homosexuality is in the 15th century copy of a 9th century manuscript of a work by someone who was a Roman who never actually traveled to the places he described. If you want to see that as an accurate source, sure. I'm not denying it doesn't say anything there. I'm just saying that values from different cultures and different eras might have been worked into all that. And going back to the bog bodies, because of the weird way that these bodies get preserved, they got assumed that they were some kind of ritual sacrifice or murder or something. But the study I mentioned earlier of these over 1,000 bodies only found 45 to have died a violent death and 5 by suicide. So interesting. So once again, ritual sacrifice and murders in bogs definitely happened, but it wasn't as common as things like this might suggest. So yeah, once again, although Tacitus' work does actually mention something that has been interpreted as meaning homosexuality. Another theory about this whole sexual deviance is that it was adultery. He also describes people being in pretty monogamous relationships, and illicit relationships were punished. So this does not have to mean homosexuality. It can also mean just having a mistress. And because Tacitus himself did not travel to Germania, there might have been some kind of miscommunications. Someone saw something, had some Germanic concept of, I don't know, sexuality described, and kind of like had to translate that to Roman terms and then tell that to Tacitus, which then understood it in his own way. So yeah, it can mean more than just simply this passive homosexuality that it seems to be referring to. But, and I'm gonna go towards the end here, that brings me to myself and my channel and why I get comments like this. So although pre-Viking Age Scandinavia is very interesting, I'm very interested in the Bronze Age, Iron Age and stuff, I never really talk about that on my channel. It's always either modern paganism related or Viking Age related. So comments like this are very anachronistic. Like, you are insulting me by using a source that has realistically nothing to do with my content, because Tacitus lived in the first century. The first century. You know when the Viking Age started? In the 8th century. So he did not describe Viking Age things and Viking Age people. He didn't even describe Scandinavians. He wrote about people in what is now Germany, the Netherlands, Poland, yeah, a bit of Denmark, but that's about it. So while I appreciate the research and the creativity of these hate comments, and it gives me things to talk about and create content, so well, thank you, I guess. But still, it's not really there. And I would advise against saying things like that to people on the internet that you don't know, because even if this passage was referring to passive homosexuality, like, I have never spoken about my sexuality here. I've spoken about my gender identity, yeah, but how do you know if I am a passive homosexual? I am literally a trans man. So if we were to use these stereotypical terms of effeminate men trying to be the woman in the relationships or whatever, like, I am literally doing the opposite. I transitioned into being a man. So that's no. So if you're actually interested in actual human sacrifice from the actual Viking Age, then I think what people are conflating is Tacitus with another historian, Adam of Bremen, which was a bishop from Hamburg who described the cult at Uppsala in Sweden. And his account was actually far more interesting in my opinion, once again, because the Viking Age is my area of interest and expertise. So if you guys would be interested in hearing what this guy had to say, I am more than willing to talk about him. He actually does not mention homosexuality of any kind, but he does mention human sacrifice. And I had a whole lecture about him and his account of Old Norse religion. So yeah, I would be more than willing to talk about that. But yeah, keep in mind that people who comment things like this are probably not only homophobic or transphobic, but also might have some connections to alt-right nationalist communities like neo-Nazis, because once again, I will put links to all the research that I've used in this video and the original Germania if you want to read it, if you want to know more about it. Yeah, I'll put it all down in the description. There's a whole study about, from a person from Stanford University who looked in how this work has been used by Nazis to develop the whole Germans being the best race kind of theory, because Germania does give a kind of idealized view of these Germanic tribes. So let me just serve as an example that not every single person who considers themselves a pagan and is interested in things like this is actually an alt-right nationalist, and that some people actually get a lot of hate from people like that. But yeah, I'm so sorry for this kind of less positive video, but life is not very positive, unfortunately. I will try to come up with something more fun next week. But anyways, I do hope you've enjoyed it. I hope this is not too long. So yeah, thank you for watching. And yeah, just don't leave any hate comments under people's videos. Like, if you don't like a video, don't watch it. Click away, go watch something else. If you do like this video, go leave a thumbs up and leave a positive comment. Yeah, thank you. Bye bye.